For this to fire up, and it's coming on now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday edition of Account-Based Fridays. We got a great guest today. AI has been such a hot topic. ChatGPT 4, 3.5, 3, Bard. I can't keep up. Jasper, and all these tools that are coming up with APIs. And we've got an expert today, Nicole Leffer out of Atlanta, who has been really engaged with generative AI for quite some time as a head of marketing, and now in her current role as an advisor. I'll give her a moment to explain her background. But first, we start off each week with a poll, and this week's poll is actually related to AI, and none of us are lawyers, full disclosure, so we're not here to give legal advice. This is for typically sales and marketing audience and leaders of those functions. But it is kind of an interesting question because AI does pull from a lot of different data sources. And so the question I was asking was, how concerned are you or your company in terms of the legal implications of AI? And it was pretty much split across the board. I put somewhat concerned because I just don't know what the implications are. Meg, did you have any reactions to this?
I picked somewhat as well. I would say I'm not like super concerned about it, but neither am I not thinking about it. And I guess the former, editor and English major in me worries any time that you are not creating your own independent content makes me worry about any issues where things inadvertently aren't okay, and especially if you're not the one saying how did this get sourced. But hey, if Ed Sheeran got off the hook, the rest of us can too. So I think it's all good. But I put myself in the somewhat concerned bucket on this one. But Nicole, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And this is definitely one of those, a lot of us don't know what we don't know. So delighted to have you here enlightening us. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background since you've been working in this space for longer than a lot of folks.
Yeah. So I got into AI. I was the head of marketing at a B2B tech SaaS company. And when I came in, it was really early in this technology. That's like August of 2021. Nobody was using this, but I started seeing a couple of ads and articles and dug in and went, we have to use this. So very, very quickly brought on a generative AI tool called AnyWord that is both generative AI as well as it predictively scores how your marketing copy is going to do. And our team used that for the entire year that I was at that company. I dug really, really deep into figuring out how can we really leverage this technology to skyrocket our results with our marketing and really make a small team be able to do a whole lot more, and fell in love with the technology. My team would laugh at you probably and tell you, yeah, she was obsessed with making us use AI for everything. When I went my separate ways from Resilia, I ended up going in and digging very, very, very deeply into all of the AI tools that are out there. And I had just a blast learning everything that I possibly could about every one of them. Not every one of them, there's a million of them. And then I ended up through CMO communities I was a part of, people were like, hey, could you share some of what you're learning? Because I was just sort of talking about it. ChatGPT came out, and suddenly a lot of people were coming to me going, can you help with this? And I ended up just becoming a CMO AI advisor, and it evolved into training mostly B2B tech marketing teams. I do some other kinds of companies as well, but training their teams on how to leverage this AI technology to make the most out of everything that they are doing. So, yeah.
Awesome. And you've got quite a background there. And I know we were talking about, before we jumped on here, some questions around best practices and writing prompts. And, prompts are part of, maybe you could define what a prompt is, and how it works. And then maybe we can get into the best practices, because maybe not everybody understands a prompt. I know in some cases they're automated, in some cases they're not. But how would you categorize prompts?
Yeah.
And,
so a prompt is A prompt is essentially the clear, specific directions that you are, well, I guess you don't have to give it specific directions, but the directions that you are giving to an AI system to tell it exactly what you want it to do for you. So it is the written thing that you put in that says, this is your task, this is your project, and it guides what it's going to give you back.
Gotcha.
It sounds like it's kind of the AI equivalent of a creative brief that you would give to a content agency or a brand agency or a designer, same kind of thing.
It's exactly the same thing. And I actually really recommend thinking of it in very similar terms. There's certain things you do want to do to make it even better or a little bit different than a creative brief would be. So one of those things that I recommend at the beginning of a lot of prompts, especially now talking the main tool, the biggest tool people are using is ChatGPT. So I like to give prompting advice in terms of ChatGPT a lot. A lot of that technology underlies what is speeding, the same model technology underlies what's speeding a lot of the other tools. So if you can prompt for ChatGPT, a lot of this translates to everything else. But if you start like a ChatGPT prompt and tell ChatGPT who it is, I like to start with just you are, and then imagine who that person you're giving the creative brief would be, and who is the best person on earth to do this project. So you are the top Google Ads copywriter in the world with a specialization in generating ads that get a high click-through rate that lead to conversion and sales. Give that kind of a thing to ChatGPT at the beginning, so that it takes on actually being that persona while it writes. So you hear a lot of people advising like to do something similar, but they say act as. And like a lot of the advice and a lot of the pre-written prompts out there I've seen say act as a Google Ads copywriter. That's okay. Like that's better than doing nothing. It's not nearly as good as what I just told you. You are the top Google Ads expert copywriter in the world because of two things. One is ChatGPT, and especially GPT-4, seems to have the ability to differentiate between the idea of acting as, which is role playing, and being, which is you actually are that thing, and which is going to be better at something. So I have actually seen the exact same prompt written with you are versus act as does much, much better with you are. The other thing with that is, yeah, it'd be nice to have a Google Ads copywriter working on this, but don't you want the best one with that specific skill set? And ChatGPT like actually can differentiate like the level of quality if you give it that level of specificity when you write your prompt.
Yeah, I noticed even with prompts, and I've been playing around with Jasper for the better part of a year. And Jasper is an AI like derivation in my mind. I'd be curious to see how you think of things, but I've noticed with GPT 3, 3.5, 4, you really have to direct it. Whereas with Jasper, it's kind of like they've automated a lot of that process. And I haven't played around at all with Baird yet. But do you see differences there in terms of the prompting extremes? So
Jasper, my understanding, unless they've changed this recently, but Jasper is essentially using the ChatGPT or the OpenAI models. So they started with 3, then went to 3.5, and then went to 4. This is my understanding. I don't know Jasper inside out or anything. But they're using the same language models from OpenAI. What they're doing on their end is doing that initial little bit of prompt. And so it's like programmed in. So in their system, it writes some of that framework. So when you put your prompt in, it gets combined with their prompt and asks the model. I could be wrong at exactly how it works, but it's similar. But that's something similar to what I'm describing. That is what the vast majority of the tools out there are doing. They're somehow adding in that process, they're programming in their own prompts as part of the process. And that's why if you're doing one that's framed for blogs in Jasper, it's already going to kind of format it how you want it to be for a blog without you giving it that explicit direction. But it's not a different model. And you can still, I don't use Jasper personally, so I'm not an expert on how you prompt Jasper. But my understanding is you could still give it some of those extra little bits and still improve your prompt. You just don't have to necessarily to get what you want out of it. Now, Bard is not the same as Jasper. Bard is Google's own model. I have found with Bard, I haven't played, they just did like an upgraded version. I'm not even sure if everybody has access to it yet, because it's happened in like the last 48 hours and I've been on back-to-back meetings for the last 48 hours. But Bard, when I have played with the initial model of Bard, the prompting model that I use for ChatGPT generates much, much, much better results than the prompting model that like just, write a blog post kind of a thing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there is differences, but at the same time, good prompting is always going to make a positive impact. It's just how much prompting has the company already written into the programming for what you're doing.
Totally. And just thinking about the like a B2B, let's think of a marketer, day in the life of a marketer. Where do you think companies should be right now on that adoption curve? Like, where should they be looking to leverage generative AI? Is this too early days? Should they be, really, really aggressively testing it? Like, where exactly in a marketing organization would you see the most benefit?
So what I'm seeing that's really interesting is there's starting to be a major convergence of like where companies are on this. I would say the vast majority are probably, especially outside of tech, but even in the tech space, the vast majority are like, I'm aware of this vaguely. And maybe their team is taking it upon themselves to dabble a little without any guidance or like, but there's a little bit of a blinder that most of these companies have to this. Is just kind of, if you took like 1,000 and, looked at them, then you've got the companies that are going, I'm definitely dipping my toe in, but they don't really have this specific direction. And then you've got the companies that are all in on learning this stuff. And what I am seeing is these companies that are all in on this stuff are skyrocketing their efficiencies, cannot believe how much they're doing with their resources. And those who commit to learn it and train their team and do this stuff are obsessed. Like, I mean, these CMOs are obsessed with the results that they're getting because it can do so much. So all of that is to say, if you want your team to be ahead of the curve and have a competitive advantage, I mean, this tech for like what it does, and you consider how much staff costs to be able to do a lot of the same thing versus the cost of like a $20 a month tool, it is like a no-brainer when you really think of it to really adopt and go all in and even pay for training and like get your team up to speed. I think content creation is an obvious place, but this could be used in product marketing, for persona creation, for, sales enablement, all of that kind of stuff. It could be used for, and now you got to be careful about what you put in the tools, but there's a lot of analysis and strategic work that it can be used for. I mean, I have seen CMOs writing entire marketing strategies with this. I have seen product marketers writing their product marketing, like all of that material with this. I've seen content creation. I mean, you can really at this point do almost anything really well with generative AI, with the exception being video still not quite all the way there. Like, there's options out there, but video is not going to be you write a text prompt and suddenly you have a video that is done of what you want. It's coming soon. It's not going to be long. The other piece of like adopting early and learning it now is, one, your team's already going to have this skill set much earlier. So as the technology gets better and better, they're going to understand how to leverage it. And it's also easier to learn things one piece at a time as it comes out, versus if you wait 6 months, you're going to have 1,000 more things you have to learn to start adopting. So it's much easier to take it step by step by step and learn it when it's not, I now have to learn every one of these tools or I am so far behind.
Gotcha. And looks like because I have worked with Brian in a prior life, Brian, thanks for joining us. He's actually got an interesting perspective as a sales leader. Where would you see generative AI helping maybe a BDR or a sales function, based on what you've seen in your analysis so far?
So in a couple of different ways, it's great for your outreach. There's a company called Lavender that makes a phenomenal tool for sales outreach that helps sales. It helps evaluate the quality of your email and rewrite it so that it's more likely to be opened and you like actually responded to by the contact. I've heard really great feedback from lots of people using Lavender. So that's number one. But several other ways beyond that, it can be used for research. So, adopting ChatGPT doesn't have internet access unless you have the web browsing function, but using a tool like Edge, and you go onto a prospect's website and the Microsoft web browser, and just push the little Edge button or the Bing button, and you can now chat about the website. So I love doing prompts that say something like, please give me 10 key points that this company makes on their website, or the top 10, unique selling propositions, anything like that. So like that competitive research is awesome. There's so much that you can do, including in a sales function, writing drip campaign cadences. Sorry, I haven't drank enough coffee this morning to speak clearly. So writing cadences for drip campaigns, designing drip campaigns. There's really probably everything you do, other than maybe the actually talking to the person, can be augmented with generative AI.
Gotcha. And looks like we had an SEO, SEM expert, David Quaid, we've done quite a bit of work with. I know Jasper, in my experience with SEO and SEM, has some very pointed prompts to improve some of the search capabilities. But have you seen any other, and you may not go very, very deep here, but have you seen any other implications for search with ChatGPT? And there's some limitations too. Like it only goes back, I think, to 2021. So it may work. Yeah. I don't know. Like what are you seeing there?
So there's a couple of different questions baked into this that I'd love to address as it relates to SEO. So first thing is, on the SEO front, SEO is going to be changing so dramatically because of AI. So you've got a couple of things going on. One is the search engines are actually changing because of AI, and how they're feeding results, and also how they're searching is changing because they're leveraging this AI technology now. My own prediction of where SEO is going in the not that distant future, and this is a prediction, nobody has told me this is how they're programming things, but just makes sense with the technology, is the AI is going to go and read all of these pages and understand them. So keywords are going to become almost irrelevant, or completely irrelevant, because it's really, the new keyword will be the concept, the big picture of what you're putting out there, not the keyword itself. It's going to be, what is this whole thing of this page? What does it mean? What does it say? And how does that fit to what this person is looking for? And it's not going to matter what words you've used to say that. So that's the first thing. That's a prediction. That's a guess. But I really think where SEO is going to go is it's going to be more about the quality of the full picture of the content. The next thing is, with SEO, a lot of people are really afraid that they're going to get dinged in the search results if they're using AI to create that content. However, there's two factors for that. One is, as of right now, it's pretty widely accepted within the AI community that AI detectors do not work. Like, there is not a reliable AI detector out there. They will find human content and consider it to be AI. They will find AI content and consider it to be human. And, I put almost everything I generate. No, I don't put everything I generate. I put several things I've generated through a bunch of different AI detectors. It almost always says that it is human created when I put it in there. So part of that is because of how I prompt, and I'm putting my own ideas in, and I'm giving it my voice to write in. But my point with that is, these companies also know these AI detectors are not reliable, so they're not building their search engines around it. And to the point, Google has even said explicitly, we are not dinging search for AI generated content. It is okay if you have generated your content with AI. What we are dinging search for is AI generated content specifically to game the search system. So if you're but if you write a human piece of content trying to game the search system, it's going to get dinged exactly the same way. So really, as long as your content is created with a human in mind, and the human end reader in mind, it doesn't care if it's a human or an AI system that wrote it. All of that said, now for SEO research, ChatGPT itself is not connect, and GPT-4 is not connected to the internet. Unless you are using web browsing, but the model is trained through September of 2021. It does not know anything on the internet or anything that's happened in the world since September of 2021. And if you want it to know, you have to tell it yourself. With that, even on the web browsing, it's not retraining the whole model. It's just essentially the equivalent of you being able to go out and do a Bing search or a Google search or whatever. Like, it's just doing that search on your behalf, reading a page or two and using that to input for that specific. All that is to say, it can't do keyword research truly. Like, it can't do up-to-date keyword research. What it can do is it can give you step-by-step directions how to use your AI, your research tool, if you want it to. So I want to research XYZ term. This is how I am going to, like, how I want to use it. What should I do? Tell me step-by-step in SEMrush or in Ahrefs or anything like that. It will give you step-by-step directions. You could then take your 50 keywords that you get out of that tool and come back and say, put this into content clusters for a pillar page, and like design my whole SEO strategy with these keywords. What do I do? And let ChatGPT give you the categorized information, come up with the entire SEO plan for you based off the keyword research it told you how to get out of another tool. And then you can start building your content, going, use these keywords to build the content out. But if you are looking at any AI tool to actually do that work, you need to make sure it has up-to-date internet connection. I don't know if Jasper does or not. Like, I have no idea with their SEO tool, but you just need to be really, really aware that, yes, it can't connect to the internet and scrape it for keywords, but it can still be a huge part of your SEO process.
Well, I have to say that is really, really, really great advice. I know I'm going to take you up on that one. It's not something we're doing now, but it's definitely something that I think would be incredibly useful, and just also to get a check, like, kind of interesting to do it yourself, like do what you would come up with on your own using your old kind of traditional methods and put it next to what you get, and do just like a bake off. And I feel like that could also instill confidence in others inside or outside the organization who aren't used to these new tools, who maybe you're like, how much better could it be? And you can show them in literal terms, like, we did this ourselves. This is what it came back with for us in this amount of time,
Yeah, and give them the time.
Yeah.
When you do that, because, if I took 3 weeks to do this and they took 30 minutes,
for sure.
It really makes a difference. The other thing you can use it for that a lot of people aren't realizing is you could put in what you have come up with and ask for feedback and suggestions for improvement.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's for anything, right? Now, you do want to be careful. Is this proprietary information? Is this stuff you're not okay with? Should you be turning it on to private mode, or is this not okay to even put in an AI? But like, if you've written a blog post and it's going to go on the internet no matter what, and you want to go give me feedback of how I could improve this, as that, top blog copywriter in the world, or the top expert in your area, or whatever it is, ChatGPT can come back and give you feedback of how you can improve it, or the SEO, whatever it is.
Looks like David just chimed in here with an interesting point. There's a broader lens to consider that most Google users aren't researchers, can't and won't adopt an AI approach to search. So any reactions to that?
It's going to be their choice. So searchers, it is just going to be, if you're talking about like actually the people searching, Google is about to update. They just came out with their update, and generative AI is going to be like the most prominent part of the search in the new version of Google. I think a lot of this people aren't even going to realize if they're not really well educated and they're just the general average user. They're not even going to know what's AI versus what's not. It's not going to be up to you as a Google searcher whether it's an AI thing or not. It's talking about what's happening on the back end of Google. But the other thing is, ChatGPT is the most fastest adopted technology in history. Like the speed at which people are starting to use it. And ChatGPT should not be a replacement for search. Like, it lies, it makes things up, it hallucinates. That's not its purpose. Like, it's a well-known issue with all of these models. BARD is the same issue. I have some concerns, like how are these search engines going to roll this out safely, to put that in there, but maybe Google has a way to do it. But all of that said, even if it shouldn't be a replacement for your research, for your search engine, it is becoming a replacement for a lot of people's search engine. And so I'm hearing lots of companies that are starting to say, yeah, we have people telling us they heard about us from ChatGPT. They heard, that's where our new referral source is for demand gen, that kind of stuff. So a lot of people are using it that way. So you have to be aware, like, you don't have a whole lot of control. I mean, we're not sure. We're still trying to figure out. There's some theories out there. I'm not going to share them publicly because I don't know what is not true. But AI optimization is going to be just as much a thing. But I was talking about SEO specifically. AI optimization, where the generative text is actually making stuff that talks about you, is going to be a whole nother area that's coming very soon in marketing, and a lot sooner than people think.
Yeah, I think David brings up another point here. And, if I were to summarize what I'm seeing with ChatGPT is it still requires human intervention, right? It's not a set and forget and, copy and paste what ChatGPT just found. I have found a number of errors, and I've been playing around with it a fair amount. Like I said, I've been using Jasper for over a year. It's good. It's really, really good, but it's not necessarily a silver bullet. Like, it still needs human intervention.
100% not a replacement for a human. Like, it is not there. I don't see it being there anytime that soon. The human is the most important element, both in what you put into it, but also that proofing, revising. It's gonna cut down. Like, it could cut down an 8-hour project to a 1-hour project, but it's not gonna cut it down to a I didn't even do anything project. Like, literally, like, it could turn an hour-and-a-half project into a 10-minute project, but you still have to have your eyes on it. One of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing people making that is, we're gonna see Instagram accounts of like AI oopses, AI in the wild, how could they be that stupid? It's coming, mark my words, because like what I'm starting to hear people ask me is, how can I set everything up so it's 100% automated? So when I get an email, it writes, it immediately writes and sends the response, and I don't even have to read it, and it's just sent. That it's customized, or how do I do it so when a news article breaks, it posts a LinkedIn post about it, and I don't have to do it. And people are actually setting up automations to do these kinds of things. The problem is, you should not be doing that, because you need a human to revise and read it. If you just have a prompt that says, when a news article breaks, you're going to write a summary and turn it into a LinkedIn post and post it, you're going to have LinkedIn posts going out that say things like, as a generative AI system, I just read a news story that says that this happened, or a nuclear bomb just went off in, XYZ place, when it did not. It will make things up, and it is really risky. So if you're going to automate things, you need to have a final approval by a human, and you need to actually check it. You need to fact check everything it creates.
Well, I'm going to put that in as our final tip of the day, or bonus tip. We did 10. This will be 11. Final tip.
If you look at it as a content assister or a marketing assister instead of a creator replacer, it's a really healthy mindset to get in. It is an assistant, not a replacement. And if you are looking at it as like a replacement, like, y'all, if you can take an 8-hour project into a 1-hour project, be happy with that. Like, you do not have to take it into a 5-minute project or a 0-minute project. Like, you just saved 7 hours on doing that. Like, don't try to push it before it's ready.
Well, I think we're just about pressing up against time here. Actually, we want a minute or two over, because I think obviously you're passionate about this topic. And it's a great topic too. It's changing by the minute. So it's great that you've kind of dedicated your, craft to this area. So Nicole, I want to just, before I acknowledge and thank you, is there any closing thoughts or any closing comments on what we've talked about today?
The only thing I would say is if anybody is interested in having me come in and work with your team to train on AI skills, that's what I do. So I work with heads of marketing, CEOs. I do both marketing teams and go-to-market teams and full companies. So happy to work with anybody. If you want to reach out on LinkedIn, I can share more information about that.
Let me get your LinkedIn here. I'll see if I can drop it in the comments. Megan, any closing thoughts on your side?
Yeah, this was super helpful. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about that. And I think it's really helpful to have things sort of broken down into the specific actions that teams can take, places where they can really benefit, the kinds of time savings you can expect to use. So thank you so much, or expect to see, I should say. Thank you so much. And I'm really, really excited that we got to spend time with you today.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure.
Nicole, great to have you here. I am putting up your LinkedIn and your website, yourname.com. So thank you for investing time. And next week, I think we got a mystery guest. So same time, same channel. We try to provide great content. And just as a reminder, if you haven't scanned to like and subscribe, because sometimes people can't see the entire episode, it's recorded. So this episode on generative AI will be in perpetuity. If you scan and like and subscribe, you'll get notified that we're producing great content here. So Nicole, thank you again, and we'll Meg, great seeing you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Happy Friday.
Bye.